Pietro Bonini is sitting in the cab of a truck on a road east of Milan. It's 3 in the morning, November 1943. The engine is off. He's been coasting the last 100 meters with no headlights, because the checkpoint is right there. 2 soldiers, a wooden barrier, a torch sweeping the road. In the back of the truck, under a canvas cover, are 3 racing cars. There's a second truck behind him, 3 more. One of the soldiers walks to Pietro's window. Pietro rolls it down. Pietro isn't Italian, he's Swiss. Grew up in Berlin, and his German is perfect. He says something. There's a pause. The torch moves along the side of the truck, slowly. It stops near the back corner where the canvas doesn't quite reach the frame, a gap of maybe 10 centimeters, where the beam could find a red painted fender. The soldier doesn't notice. He steps back, raises the barrier. The trucks drive on. Pietro doesn't know it yet, but those 6 cars are going to start Formula 1. This is the story of how that actually happened. It starts 50 years before that checkpoint, runs through the Nazi state and a world war, and ends on a converted bomber base in England with a king in the stands. Almost none of it happened the way you think. By the late 1920s, motor racing has existed for 30 years. City-to-city races on public roads, no real rules. There's a loose European Championship. Anthony Noyes manages cigarette distribution for the Principality of Monaco. That is genuinely his job. The Automobile Club de Monaco needs a major race, or it has no voice in how the sport is run. So Noyes builds one himself, walks the streets, traces the circuit by hand, designs the posters, writes the invitations. Prize 100,000 francs. Drivers 16. The first Monaco Grand Prix runs on April 14, 1929. A British driver named William Grover Williams wins it in a Bugatti, wins it again 2 years later. For a while, he's one of the best drivers in Europe. Racing in these years has a new face emerging alongside the established names. A young French driver, Jean-Pierre Vermeulen, 2 Le Mans wins. Everyone in the paddock knows he's exceptional. Remember that name. Then, somewhere in the mid-1930s, William Grover Williams fades. He races less, disappears from the results entirely. Nobody asks why, if only they had. Because in 1933, something happens that takes Grand Prix racing and bends it into something unrecognizable. And when the war it produces finally ends, almost nothing will be left. January 1933. Adolf Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. Within months, Grand Prix racing has a new patron. Hitler directs state funding to be split between Mercedes-Benz and a new company called Auto Union, with one brief: win everything, and put German engineering on every podium in Europe. The cars they build are unlike anything the sport has seen. Mercedes produces the Silver Arrows, bare aluminium, supercharged, built for one purpose. Auto Union builds something stranger, a mid-engine machine so rear-heavy that most drivers can barely keep it on the road. Between 1934 and 1939, these 2 cars win roughly 80% of all Grand Prix contested. Race meetings become state occasions. Swastika banners line the pit straight, SS units parade before the start, and foreign drivers who win stand on the podium and raise their arm, not because they want to. In 1939, the European Championship runs its final season. Germany invades Poland in September. The governing body can't convene. The season just stops. Mid-table, no result, no ceremony. Hermann Lang, a Mercedes driver, is declared European champion by the Völkischer Beobachter, the Nazi Party's newspaper. Under the governing body's own point system, a different driver would have won. The last man crowned world champion before Formula 1 exists is crowned by a propaganda newspaper. And then the war starts. By the time it ends, the sport that existed will be almost unrecoverable. Almost. Including William Grover Williams, who by now has a different job entirely. The Alfa Romeo 158 is built in 1937 in Enzo Ferrari's workshop in Modena. Ferrari runs Alfa's racing operation at this point, a small, light racing car, deliberately designed to sidestep the Nazi-dominated top formula. The Italians call it the Alfetta, the Little Alfa. In May 1940, an Alfetta wins the Tripoli Grand Prix, the last major race before Europe goes to war. 3 years later, the cars are in danger. Milan is under German occupation. Alfa's factory has been bombed. Wehrmacht units are moving through the city, confiscating anything of value. A group of mechanics load the Alfettas onto 2 trucks in the middle of the night. Pietro Bonini drives them east. Back on that road, the soldier steps back, raises the barrier. The trucks reach Melzo, 20 kilometers east of Milan. In a cheese factory owned by an Alfa enthusiast, the cars go in. A false wall of timber logs goes up behind them. Straw baled in front. Door shut. The engine oil still smells of Tripoli. The red paint still has dust from the circuit. The Alfettas sit in the dark. They stay there for 3 years. While those cars are in the dark, William Grover Williams is in Paris. After France falls in 1940, British intelligence recruits him. The Special Operations Executive, the SOE, trains him as a spy, gives him the codename Sebastian, parachutes him into occupied France. He sets up a sabotage network, runs it for nearly a year. On August 2nd, 1943, the same month Pietro is loading those trucks, the Gestapo finds him. He is taken to 84 Avenue Foch, the Gestapo's Paris headquarters. Interrogated, transferred to Sachsenhausen concentration camp, north of Berlin. He is executed on or around March 18, 1945. Germany surrenders 47 days later. The man who won the first Monaco Grand Prix is shot by the Nazis 7 weeks before the end of the war. He is not alone. Robert Benoist, 1927, European champion, head of Bugatti's racing department, also joins the SOE, captured June 1944, executed at Buchenwald, September 9, 1944. A third driver is with him the night of that raid, Jean-Pierre Vimille. The name from earlier, the one everyone in the paddock knew, was different. He escapes by wading into a nearby stream and pressing himself under the bank, beneath tree roots, while the Gestapo searches the trees above him. He doesn't move for hours. The search party passes within meters. Benoist is taken on the other side of the road. Vimille gets out. He survives the war, he comes back to racing, and by 1948, the paddock consensus is total. When Formula 1 begins, Vimille wins it. His car, the Alfa 158, the one that spent 3 years in a cheese factory, is the best on the grid. There's no credible challenger. On January 28, 1949, Vimille is practicing for a race in Buenos Aires. His Simca Gordini crashes. He dies that afternoon. He is 40 years old. Formula 1 begins 16 months later. The man who should have been its first champion never gets there. The sport we got is not the sport we were supposed to get. By 1946, the German teams are gone. Their factories rubble. Some of the best drivers are dead. In a meeting room in Paris, the old governing body is rebuilt and renamed the FIA. They write rules for a new top class of racing. They call it Formula 1. And for the first time, someone is seriously asking, should there be a world championship? The man most often credited with the idea is sitting around that table. His name is Marchi Antonio Brivio Sforza, Italian aristocrat, former Grand Prix driver, and separately a competitor at the 1936 Winter Olympics as a bobsledder. By 1946, he's Italy's representative inside the FIA. He makes the case. The room agrees. The 1950 World Drivers' Championship gets a date. Formula 1 is proposed by an Olympic bobsledder with a noble title. That is the founding story that never gets told. There's one more thing pushing it forward. In 1949, the International Motorcycle Federation launches the Grand Prix Motorcycle World Championship, the direct ancestor of MotoGP. Motorcycles get there first. Cars have dominated motorsport for 50 years, and a two-wheeled sport beats them to a world championship. By the end of 1949, it's decided. Formula 1 will have a world championship of drivers, starting 1950. The first race could have gone to Monaco, but Francis Curzon, the 5th Earl Howe, is Britain's man inside the FIA, former Le Mans winner, Conservative MP, Royal Navy Commodore. He lobbies. Britain gets it. Silverstone is a converted RAF bomber base in Northamptonshire. Lancaster bombers took off from this exact tarmac during the war. Now it's the venue for the first Formula 1 World Championship race. The date, May 13, 1950. King George VI arrives at Silverstone at 11 in the morning. Queen Elizabeth and Princess Margaret are with him. Earl Howe walks them along the pit lane. It's a cool May morning, overcast, the smell of fuel and cut grass in the air. The king looks at the cars with what seems like genuine curiosity. Up to 200,000 people have found their way here, on foot, by bicycle, along country lanes. The paddock is a field, track limits, straw bales. It is still the only time in history a reigning British monarch attends a Formula 1 Grand Prix. The Alfa Romeo team drove their race cars here on public roads from Banbury this morning. 20 miles, no transporter, illegal. They did it anyway. Enzo Ferrari has a dispute with the organizers over starting money. He refuses to enter. F1 begins without the most famous name in motorsport. Alfa Romeo locks out the entire front row. the only time in F1 history one team fills every position from the championship's very first race. They are the Alfa Romeo 158s, the Alphatas, built in Ferrari's workshop in 1937, raced in Tripoli in 1940, hidden in a cheese factory in Melso in 1943, while Pietro Bonini talked a Wehrmacht patrol through a checkpoint at 3 in the morning, those cars. On the front row of the first Formula One race in history, Juan Manuel Fangio starts from the second row. He will go on to win 5 world championships, a record that stands for 46 years. Today, he clips a straw bale at Stowe Corner and retires. Fangio never finishes the first Formula One race. Luigi Fagioli finishes second. He is 51 years old. 2 years later, he becomes the oldest race winner in F1 history. The winner, leading from almost the first lap, is Nino Farina. Notoriously fast, notoriously dangerous. He crosses the line at Silverstone on May 13, 1950, becoming Formula One's first race winner and by September its first world champion. In June 1966, Farina dies in a road accident in the French Alps, on his way to watch the French Grand Prix. In 1946, the walls of the cheese factory in Melzo come down. The mechanics dismantle the false wall, one log at a time. Dust comes off the timber in the morning light. Daylight enters the room for the first time in 3 years, moves across the floor slowly until it reaches the nose of the first car. Underneath the dust, the red paint is still there. The mechanics run their hands along the bodywork, get the engines running, and roll the cars out into the Italian sun. 4 years later, they win the first Formula One race in history. The man who should have driven them to the championship is buried in Buenos Aires. The Monaco GP winner who should have been here is in a grave at Sachsenhausen. The most famous constructor boycotts the first race over a payment dispute. The governing body launches it partly because motorcycles got there first. And the circuit is a converted airbase where a king stands in the paddock because nobody could think of a better way to make it feel real. Formula One is not invented on May 13, 1950. It is assembled from whatever survived by people working with wreckage in a sport that had almost nothing left. And 200,000 people show up to a field in Northamptonshire to watch it begin. Maybe that's what it has always been. Not the thing anyone planned, the thing that made it through anyway.